When you hear your wife's quiet laughter on the phone at 11 p.m. on a Friday, you don't yet realize that this sound will become the beginning of the end of your marriage. But that's exactly what happened to me. I walked through our front door exhausted, having stayed late at work fixing someone else's mistakes on a project. The unusual silence in the house instead of the comfortable chaos I'd grown accustomed to sent an immediate pang of unease through me. Jessica wasn't in the kitchen where she typically prepared elaborate meals for the kids or unwound with a glass of wine. Instead, I found an open bottle with 2 glasses, one with a fresh lipstick mark, the other barely touched. "Jessica?" I called out, moving through our home with growing apprehension. No answer. I found her in the living room wearing that tight black dress she usually saved for our special date nights. She was laughing softly into her phone, with a smile that made something twist painfully inside me. Her expression faltered for just a second when she noticed me standing there, before quickly regaining composure. "Oh, hi honey," she said dismissively as if I were merely a passing breeze. "Just catching up with an old friend." I didn't ask who. I refused to play the role of the naive husband who believes any excuse. Instead, I simply looked at her, really looked at her, as she avoided my gaze. I could feel the tension beneath her casual words, like an overstretched string ready to snap. Something was happening, something serious, but I simply nodded and turned away. I needed more evidence before confronting what my gut already knew to be true. I couldn't sleep that night. Jessica's laughter echoed in my mind, that dismissive wave of her hand replaying on an endless loop. By morning, I had convinced myself I was overreacting, until she announced over breakfast that she needed to work on Saturday. The first sting of suspicion felt like a wasp in my chest. She had never worked weekends before and her outfit wasn't office appropriate. Those heels and the short floral dress I once loved. She kissed my cheek before leaving, a kiss that felt hollow like an empty promise. I settled the kids with cartoons, told them Daddy had an errand to run and followed her. Keeping a safe distance, my heart hammered as I watched her taillights. Part of me hoped I was wrong, that I was just being paranoid. Jessica didn't drive downtown toward her office. Instead, she headed across town to a small, secluded cafe, a place we'd never been together, which felt like a deliberate choice. My stomach clenched as I watched her exit her car. She wasn't going in alone. A man waited outside, tall and wearing a leather jacket. I watched as she walked straight to him and embraced him without hesitation, wrapping her arms around his neck. Their kiss wasn't friendly but intimate and lingering, the kind that cuts your soul when you see it shared with someone who isn't you. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly I thought I might break it. I could barely process what I was seeing, my wife standing with another man, looking happier than she had with me in months. With trembling hands I took several photos on my phone. My heart pounded so loudly I thought I might pass out. I needed evidence not just for myself but for whatever would come next. I sat watching as they went inside, my vision narrowing until all I could see was red. Jessica didn't return until late afternoon, walking in with a casual smile and holding a bag of groceries. "Sorry I was gone so long, the lines were crazy," she said, not meeting my eyes. I didn't push, though my insides burned and I felt dark fury building. I kept my emotions under control, knowing I wouldn't get the truth if I exploded now. That night, while she tucked the kids in bed, I decided to dig deeper. Her phone sat unattended on the kitchen counter. Unlocked. As if she wasn't worried about what I might find. I felt like a thief, palms sweating and heart racing as I opened her messages. I found a conversation with Tom, the man I'd seen earlier. Scrolling up, I read a history that made me want to smash every plate in our kitchen. Messages about meetups, how she missed him, how excited she was for their upcoming getaway. I found messages mentioning a hotel off the highway, discussions about spending entire weekends together, disguised as work retreats. My hands trembled reading her words filled with tenderness and inside jokes, fragments of a relationship she had no right to have. The world narrowed to these words, each feeling like a punch to my gut. She had been lying to me for months. Every work event, every girls' night out, they had all been with him. I scrolled through photos, them together, his arm around her waist, her head leaning on his shoulder. In one, she wore the same dress she'd worn on our last anniversary, a cruel joke. As if she had taken the love I thought was ours and given it to someone else, dressed in the very memories that belonged to me. I heard her footsteps coming down the stairs and quickly locked the phone, placing it exactly where I'd found it. I leaned against the counter, trying to appear casual even as my heart still thundered in my ears. She walked into the kitchen and smiled at me with that same easy smile she'd been giving me for years. I wanted to scream but forced myself to smile back, pretending, playing the role of the unsuspecting husband. The next day I made my move. I told Jessica an old college friend was in town and we were meeting for dinner. She looked relieved, almost glad to have an evening to herself. "Don't rush, have fun," she said, offering a quick kiss that tasted like deceit. Instead of meeting anyone, I drove back to that same cafe parked across the street and waited. I knew she'd return to him. I felt it in my bones like a painful clockwork. Indeed, around 6 p.m. I watched her car pull up and there she was. This time she wasn't alone. Tom was with her, his arm around her waist as they laughed about something. They looked comfortable, as if this was their regular spot, as if they belonged there together. I watched them leave the cafe and get into Tom's car. I followed, my hands ice cold but my head burning hot. They eventually arrived at a hotel, the very one she'd mentioned in those messages. It was a cheap place with flickering neon signs and rooms paid by the hour. Seeing her walk inside, nestled against him, felt like the final nail in the coffin of everything I'd believed in. I sat in the parking lot, staring at this cheap motel, my thoughts racing. I knew I needed to confront her, and I knew it had to be soon. I wanted her to look me in the eyes and confess, without further lies, without empty smiles. I wanted her to say it, to face the destruction she had caused. I wanted her to know that one mistake she made, choosing to betray me, to betray our family, was about to destroy everything we had built. I drove home that night with a strange sense of calm settling over me. I had seen enough and learned what I needed to know. Jessica was no longer my wife, not really. She had made her choice and now I would have to decide what came next. Sunday morning, and the house felt different, as if I'd stepped into someone else's life. The kids played on the swings in the backyard while Jessica hummed in the kitchen, flipping pancakes as if nothing had happened. The aroma of coffee and syrup filled the air, a cruel contrast to the storm raging in my chest. I watched her move, flipping pancakes with the same old familiarity. All I could see were the photos on my phone, the ones I'd taken as she nestled against her lover. She glanced at me and smiled. "Morning, sleepyhead. You got in late last night. How was your friend?" The casual way she asked, her voice so sweet, almost made me laugh. How was my friend? I had to grip the counter to contain my emotions, forcing myself to keep a passive face. I nodded and mumbled, "Fine," before looking away. It was amazing how easily she lied, how natural it seemed for her. I knew I couldn't keep pretending much longer. I felt like an actor playing a role in a twisted, bitter play. That evening, when the kids were watching cartoons, I found Jessica in our bedroom folding laundry. She looked up, and I noticed a flicker of something in her eyes when she saw my expression, perhaps uncertainty. "Jessica," I said, my voice steady but anger bubbling beneath the surface, "we need to talk." She paused, her hands frozen on a stack of folded shirts, but she gave me that innocent look, tilting her head slightly. "Sure, what's up?" I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I took out my phone, found the photos of her with Tom, and handed it to her. I watched her face change, the color draining away, her eyes widening as she stared at the screen. She blinked once, then twice, her mouth opening and closing as if she couldn't figure out what to say. Silence stretched between us, and in that moment, everything I had feared became true, her guilt clearly written in the way her shoulders slumped. "Adam, I can explain," she finally said, her voice trembling, reaching out as if she could erase this evidence right from my hand. I stepped back, just beyond her reach. "Explain what, Jessica? Explain how you've been seeing someone else for months? Or maybe explain why you've been lying every time you left this house. Girls' nights out, work trips, they were all for him, weren't they?" My voice rose despite my will, years of anger and pain pouring out. She stared at me, her expression hardening, not guilt but irritation, as if I was the one creating a problem. "Look, it wasn't supposed to be like this," she said sharply, dropping the pretense. "Tom, he understands me in ways you don't, Adam. Things haven't been right between us for a long time, and you know it." An accusation, an attempt to shift blame onto me. I felt my hands clench into fists, not because I wanted to hurt her but to keep myself steady. "You're really going to put this on me?" I asked, my voice low, shaking with restraint. "If something was wrong you could have talked to me, we could have worked on it. But no, you chose to go behind my back, to lie again and again. You've ruined everything we built. You chose him, Jessica." Her eyes narrowed, her face transforming into something almost unrecognizable. "Maybe I did, Adam, maybe I chose him because I was tired of feeling like I just exist here, that I'm invisible. You never notice me anymore, you're always busy, always distracted. And Tom makes me feel alive again." Her words cut deep, each like a shard of glass. I had been busy, work had been demanding with the kids and everything else, perhaps I had taken things for granted. but nothing justified what she had done. She looked at me defiantly, as if daring me to contradict her, as if wanting to strip away the last part of the person I thought I knew. "So that's it," I said, my voice breaking. "You've already made your choice." She said nothing, but the look in her eyes was enough. I turned and walked out of the room. I didn't sleep that night, remaining on the couch staring at the ceiling. I thought about how I would tell the kids, how I would explain that Mom and Dad wouldn't be living together anymore. My world had fractured, and all I could do now was try to pick up the important pieces. My children, my sanity. Monday morning felt like a cruel echo of the life I once had. I was still in the same house, surrounded by the same walls, but they felt like they were crumbling. The kids sat at the breakfast table, chatting about school, oblivious to the war that had erupted between their parents. Jessica moved around the kitchen with mechanical precision, pouring, making small talk, her eyes avoiding mine. I'd made my decision. I couldn't let this farce continue, not for my sanity and certainly not for the kids. After dropping them at school, I decided to take a day off work. It was time for a real conversation, without the facade of family breakfasts or pretending that what we had wasn't destroyed. Jessica was surprised to see me so soon. She was in the living room, scrolling through her phone, legs tucked under her on the couch. The same pose she'd had when I first caught her talking to Tom. I stood watching her for a moment and she looked up, startled. I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, perhaps annoyance that her comfortable routine had been interrupted. "We need to figure out what happens next," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Jessica's expression hardened, and she put down her phone, sighing heavily as if I were just another inconvenience. "Adam, can we not do this right now?" she said, leaning back and crossing her arms. "The kids." "No, Jess, we have to do this now," I interrupted her, stepping closer. "You owe me at least that. They deserve to know what's happening and I need to understand what comes next." She stared at me for a long moment, then rolled her eyes. "Fine, Adam, what do you want to talk about? Do you want me to apologize? Do you want me to say I'm sorry I fell out of love with you?" Her words dripped with contempt, each cutting deeper than the last. "Apologize?" I said, letting out a harsh, joyless laugh. "You think an apology fixes this? This isn't just about saying sorry, Jess, it's about how you decided again and again that lying to me, lying to our children was easier than just being honest. You decided what we had wasn't worth saving." She shook her head, her jaw tightening. "You think this was easy for me, Adam? You think I wanted this? I tried for years to get your attention, to make you notice me. To do something other than just bury yourself in work and pretend everything was fine." I felt my anger flare again, hot and wild. "Don't you dare put this on me. I know I made mistakes, I know I was buried in work and everything else. But I was always here, Jessica. I was always here for our family, for you. And you," I pointed at her, my voice trembling, "you decided to turn your back on everything we built, on every promise you made to me." A moment of silence, thick and heavy, hung between us, then she suddenly stood, her face twisting into a sneer. "You know what, Adam, maybe I did. Maybe I got tired of being the one holding everything together while you just coasted along thinking everything was fine. Tom listens to me, he actually cares about me." "Tom?" I repeated the name, leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. "You mean the guy who meets you in shady motels? Sneaking around behind his own wife's back? That's the man you're willing to throw your family away for? You think that's love, Jess? That's lies, just like everything you've been doing." For a moment I thought I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes, but it was gone before I could be sure. She turned her back to me, her voice dropping lower. "You don't understand, it's more complicated than it seems." "No, Jess," I said, stepping forward, my voice low but firm. "It's simple. You broke us. You broke me. And now you need to tell me what you want. Do you want to stay here, pretending, lying to our kids, acting like we're still some perfect little family? Or are you ready to own up to what you did?" She turned around, her eyes cold and narrowed. "You think I'll just walk away? Leave my children, leave this house and let you play the martyr? This is my home too, Adam. I'm not going anywhere." That's when it really hit me. She wasn't sorry, she wasn't remorseful. For her, this was all some battle of wills, a power struggle over who would stay, who could claim the life we had built. She had no intention of admitting she was wrong, no intention of making it right. She was ready to fight for every inch of this broken marriage. A strange calm settled over me as I realized that the woman standing before me wasn't the person I thought I'd married. She was a stranger, someone who looked like Jessica but had lost every trait of warmth and kindness that had drawn me to her in the first place. I slowly nodded, feeling the weight of the decision forming in my chest. "All right," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. If that's how you want it, then that's what you'll get. But I won't stay here and pretend, not for you, not for anyone. We're done, Jess. I'll talk to a lawyer tomorrow. You can stay here for now, but I'm taking the kids. They deserve to be around someone who actually cares about them, not someone who's too busy sneaking around with Tom. For the first time, real fear flashed across her face. You can't just take them, Adam. I held her gaze, my expression hardening. Watch me. I turned and walked out, hands trembling but resolve unwavering. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but I knew it was the only way to protect what mattered most to me. I spent the night in a small, cheap hotel with thin walls. I could hear the muffled sounds of people in the next room, arguing, laughing, someone dropping something heavy, the world outside continuing as if nothing had changed while mine had fallen apart. I stared at the ceiling, replaying my conversation with Jessica over and over in my head. I tried to find some hint, some sign that there was anything left that could be salvaged, but there was nothing. The next morning, I found a lawyer. I never imagined myself sitting across from someone like this. I explained my situation, my wife's infidelity, and what I wanted to do about it. Mr. Hendrick, the attorney, was calm and practical. He'd heard it all before. He explained my options. Custody arrangements, the house, the process. It was clinical, the way he talked about dismantling my life into manageable pieces. I nodded, signing papers, feeling strangely detached, as if watching someone else take these steps. I returned home that same afternoon, ready for whatever would come. I wasn't sure if Jessica would even be there. Part of me almost hoped she wouldn't be. Maybe she'd be with Tom, running away from the mess she'd created. But when I opened the door, I found her in the kitchen again, as if nothing had happened. She was slicing vegetables, her back to me, and for a brief moment I just stood there watching her. It looked so normal, so painfully domestic that I felt a surge of anger rising again. We need to talk, I said, my voice harsher than I'd intended. She flinched, turning to face me, and I could see she'd been expecting this. Her face was set in a stubborn line, her eyes narrowed. Are we really doing this now, Adam? She asked, her voice tired, almost bored. I took a deep breath, stepping closer. Yes, we are. I went to a lawyer today. I'm filing for divorce. Jessica's hands froze, the knife clattering on the cutting board, her face draining of color. But I saw a flash of defiance behind her shock. You can't just decide this by yourself. We need to talk about this, about what's best for the kids. I shook my head. I've talked about it with myself. I'm not staying here while you continue a relationship with him, lying to our faces every day. You made your choice, Jess, and I'm making mine. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She looked down at the counter, her fingers curling into fists. So that's it, she finally said, her voice trembling. You're just walking away? I let out a bitter laugh. You're the one who walked away from us the moment you decided to be with Tom. I tried, Jess, I tried to find a way to make sense of this, but you've made it clear that I don't matter to you anymore. All that's left is to figure out what happens next. She stared at me, her eyes blazing. And what happens next, Adam? You think you'll just take the kids and leave me here with nothing? You think I'll let you do that? I stepped closer, my hands shaking not from fear but from determination. I'm not taking them from you, but I am taking them with me. We'll sort out custody, but I refuse to let them live in a house full of lies. If you want to fight me on this, then go ahead. But I promise you, I'll do everything I can to make sure they're safe and away from this mess you've created. For a moment I thought she might scream, that she might attack, but instead her shoulders slumped. She looked at me, and for the first time in weeks I saw something genuine: fear. It was raw, unguarded, and I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. You really think you're perfect here, don't you? She said, her voice breaking. You think you're innocent, but you're not. You pushed me away, Adam. You stopped caring about me long before I met Tom. I swallowed, the words landing hard. Maybe there was truth in what she said. Maybe I had been absent, too buried in work and everything else, but that wasn't an excuse for what she'd done. Not an excuse for how she chose to destroy us, instead of trying to fix what was broken. Maybe I wasn't perfect, I admitted, my voice low, almost a whisper. But I didn't betray you. I didn't lie to you. I didn't destroy our family because I was unhappy. That was you, Jess. You and you alone. She stared at me, her eyes wide, mouth open as if she wanted to argue, but no words came out. I could see the walls she'd built around herself starting to crack. She hadn't expected this, thought I would fight to keep her, that I would beg her to come back, but I was done. I had seen enough. I turned away, heading for the stairs. I'll stay in the guest room for now. I'll let you know when I plan to move out. We'll tell the kids together when we figure this out. I heard her sob, just once, a raw choked sound that echoed in the silence of the house. But I didn't turn back, couldn't allow myself to be pulled into her pain anymore. I had my own pain to deal with, my own heart to heal, and I knew I had to be strong for my children. Jessica's tears were no longer my concern. Climbing the stairs, I felt an unexpected sense of relief. The hardest part, telling the children and dividing their lives, was still ahead, but I'd finally taken control. Jessica had destroyed what we had, yet I was determined to rebuild. The masks were off, and despite the pain, I could finally see a path forward. Over the next few days, Jessica and I avoided each other, planning how to tell our children. I rehearsed my words repeatedly, struggling to find the right way to explain. We agreed to do it Saturday over breakfast, giving us the whole day to handle the aftermath. When Saturday arrived, the children were at the table. Emma proudly showed me her drawing of our family at the zoo. My heart ached seeing this image of a family about to vanish. Jessica sat across from me, her eyes puffy from sleepless nights. "Emma, Jason, Mom and Dad have something important to tell you," I began. "We love you both so much, but sometimes adults stop being able to live together. We've decided we won't be living in the same house anymore." Emma's face crumpled. "Are you leaving Daddy?" "I'm not leaving you ever. I'll always be your dad," I promised, taking her small hand. Jason looked confused. "Are we still going to be a family?" Jessica finally spoke. "Yes, honey. We'll always be a family no matter what happens. We love you both, and that will never change." Emma began sobbing. I held her tight, whispering reassurances. Jason, angry, shouted, "Why can't you just stay? Why does everything have to change?" before running to his room and slamming the door. I comforted Emma until she calmed down, then settled her with cartoons. When I returned to the kitchen, Jessica looked up at me, her expression vacant. "You think this is easy for me?" she whispered. "You think I wanted to break their hearts?" "No, I don't think it's easy for you," I admitted. "But it's the consequence of what you did. Now we need to do everything to make it right for them." She nodded. "I love them, Adam. I love them so much." Something softened in me. Despite everything, she was their mother and she loved them. "Then let's focus on that," I said. "Let's make sure they come first." The days that followed mixed normalcy with upheaval. I slept in the guest room while Jessica and I awkwardly coexisted. The children asked nightly if things could return to normal, their pain the hardest part of all. When Jessica was out, I packed my things. My friend Mark helped load my belongings into his truck. Each box felt like setting down a piece of myself, memories and hopes of a future that no longer existed. I was grateful the children were at school, spared from watching me leave. As I came downstairs with the last boxes, Jessica returned. Her face paled when she saw me. "I'm leaving today," I said simply. She nodded tearfully. "I didn't think it would be so soon. It's time. I'll take the kids this weekend and pick them up after school. We can work out a schedule later." "Adam, I can't take back what I did. I know I hurt you and ruined everything, but I'm sorry. I never wanted it to end like this." Looking at her, I realized the fury had faded, leaving emptiness in its place. "I believe you're sorry, but it doesn't change what happened. You made your choice and now I'm making mine. What about the kids? I don't want them to hate me." "They won't hate you. They're confused and hurt, but they love you. You're their mother and nothing will change that. Just be there for them and be honest from now on." I carried the boxes to the truck where Mark waited. As we drove away, I watched Jessica's figure in the doorway shrink in the side mirror until she disappeared. That night in Mark's spare room, I scrolled through pictures of Emma and Jason, my heart aching. I texted Jessica about picking up the kids on Friday, her reply coming instantly. There was no point dwelling on what was gone. I needed to focus on my children and the future I could still build. Friday arrived quickly. After a week at Mark's, I drove to pick up Emma and Jason, feeling both excitement and dread. Jason waited outside with his backpack while Emma stood on the porch beside Jessica. The sight of my children next to their mother, the woman who was once my partner, hit me hard. "Dad!" Emma shouted, running toward me. I knelt down, catching her in my arms, then hugged Jason too as he approached more hesitantly. Holding them both close, I felt their warmth soothe the pain that had settled in my chest.